All right, the Philippines seems to has a lot of really interesting urban legends and stories.
Oh yeah, and
Really
we are gonna get into some today. First of all, we want to give a big shout out to
Test purposes 3293. They suggested this video. And yeah, like if you guys have any suggestions for things you want to see, let us know in the comments.
always. Yeah, we do read them, believe it or not. So yeah.
We put out videos 3 times a day, so we'll probably get to it.
Starting us off today, we have the legends of the Romblon Triangle, which is, as the name implies, the Philippines version of the Bermuda Triangle, located between the islands of Mindoro, the Dos Hermanas, and the Sibuyan Islands within the Romblon province. Of course, much like the Bermuda Triangle, the Romblon Triangle has been the site of many strange disappearances throughout the years, including the world's worst non-war related maritime disaster, in which the merchant vessel Donna Paz inexplicably collided with an oil tanker in 1987. The bizarre, seemingly avoidable disaster cost the lives of all 4,000 individuals aboard the ships, which promptly sank into the ocean after colliding with one another. Prior to this event, another vessel, the merchant vessel Don Juan, sank, ending the lives of 176 passengers, and many years later in 2008, the merchant vessel Princess of the Stars capsized, killing 118 passengers out of 151. So what caused this? Whether improper planning, or perhaps, as the legend goes, a mythical creature residing in the heart of the Romblon that lurks in the shadows and attacks the ships of sailors who make the mistake of crossing the passage at night. But who really knows?
Next up, we have the tale of the Jeepney Ride. So jeepneys are the primary source of public transportation in the Philippines. They're basically a cross between a Jeep and a minibus, and they're covered with like all these colorful decorations. They look really fun. If you've ever been on one, let me know what it's actually like riding in one. So, like with any urban legend, there are different versions, but it usually goes something like this. A young woman is leaving work late. Luckily, there's a jeepney outside and she hops in. She's the only passenger. She minds her own business, listening to music or whatever, but she soon notices that the driver is glaring at her through the rear view mirror. He looks away when they lock eyes, but every time she looks back up again, he's staring. She starts getting uncomfortable at this point, but luckily, she's just about made it to her destination. She goes to get off the jeepney when suddenly the driver takes off. Panicked, she yells at the guy to stop, that she wants to get off, but he just keeps driving. At this point, she thinks she's going to die. She can't jump off the thing either because they're going way too fast. But then the jeepney screeches to a halt. The woman opens her eyes. They're back at her stop. She goes to hop off the vehicle when the driver turns around. He looks horrified and explains to her that when he looked in the rear view mirror, she had no head, a bad omen signifying her death, and that he had to drive around and confuse whatever evil spirit had followed her onto his jeepney. The woman finally gets out of the vehicle, but the next day wakes up to find a crowd and police outside her house. The jeepney had crashed into a nearby tree. That bad omen the driver had seen was for him, not his passenger.
So remember that creature I was telling you guys about earlier? The one that lives in the heart of the Romblon? Well, it isn't actually just some unknown entity, but rather it's an Aswang. An Aswang is an evil sort of shape-shifting witch-vampire hybrid that particularly enjoys the taste of human flesh and BLOOD. Sorry guys, you know I can't say that word on here. It preys on victims at night, assuming the forms of various animals, but mainly cats and wolves due to their stealth hunting abilities. It is said that when the Aswang chooses its prey, it will perch on the top of their homes and use their snake-like tongue to survey the area. When the night reaches its darkest point, the Aswang enters its victims' residences and eats them, or curses them. But believe it or not, in the case of the Aswang, you'd probably prefer to get eaten, because generally the curses involve either rice, sand, or even bugs pouring out of the orifices of those unfortunate enough to fall under the creature's wicked spell, and that's just gross. Sorry for telling you, but if I had to read about it, you have to hear about it and visualize it.
Next up, we have the hospital elevator urban legend. The story goes something like this. A doctor at a hospital was working late into the night. Now, this particular hospital is rather notorious. Strange stuff has been known to happen. Some say the whole building is cursed, but our doctor hadn't experienced anything unsettling at the hospital, never saw anything he didn't have a logical explanation for, which would all end on this very night. So the doctor is heading to the elevator, his shift is over, the doors open, and there's one other person inside. He goes to get in when suddenly his ears perk up. There's this painful moan coming from the end of the hallway. He turns around to see a patient running towards the elevator, arms outstretched, pleading with them to hold the doors. The doctor notices something and rushes into the elevator, repeatedly hitting the button for the doors to close. The other man in the elevator turns to the doctor and says, "What's wrong? Why'd you close the doors on him?" The doctor looks horrified. He takes a moment to compose himself before saying, "Didn't you see? That guy had a red wristband on. Only the corpses in the morgue have red wristbands." The elevator goes completely silent before the other man holds up his arm, saying, "You mean like this one?"
At our halfway point today, let's talk a bit about the My Way curse, as in My Way, the hit song written by Paul Anka and performed by none other than Frank Sinatra. It's great, right? Well, have you ever heard of the My Way killings that took place in the Philippines between 2000 and 2007, and then again in 2018? Well, if you haven't, buckle up because it is one hell of a ride. In 2007, the first My Way death occurred after a 29-year-old man attempted to sing the song at a local karaoke bar. He was off key, and so a security guard fired a projectile at the man, swiftly ending his singing career and his life. After that, the killings continued to the point where many karaoke bar owners actually removed the song from rotation. If you wanted to sing it, you had to book a private room for your own safety. After 2012, the killings had pretty much died down, probably because people were too scared to sing the cursed tune, but in 2018, a 28-year-old man was impaled by his 60-year-old neighbor after a fight broke out over the song. Later that year, a curfew was even imposed on karaoke bars in an attempt to lessen the violence. So I have to ask you guys, is the song cursed, or does the Filipino population just really dislike Sinatra?
The San Juanico Bridge took 4 years to complete. It's one of the longest bridges in the Philippines. But there's a dark legend behind it. It's said that during the bridge's construction, human remains were mixed in with cement, said to supposedly make the foundation of the bridge stronger. But these human remains weren't obtained in the most pleasant of ways. You see, from 1969 to 1973, as the bridge was being built, a number of missing young persons cases were reported in the surrounding area, a much larger number than usual. These reports then seemed to suddenly stop as soon as the bridge was completed, and it's said that a fortune teller told the overseer of the construction that the bridge would never be completed unless the BOOD of young people was mixed in with the cement.
Up next, we have the Multo White Lady. So what is a Multo? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's the spirit of a dead person or animal that comes to visit family members who are still alive, and they're generally quite peaceful. In layman's terms, it's a friendly ghost. The White Lady is a Multo, but a different kind of Multo. You see, the White Lady doesn't just appear to members of her family. In fact, she doesn't even appear to just those who knew her. She kind of just appears in empty buildings, on the edges of cliffs, and near forests and roadways. Not only that, but she's said to be quite malicious. The White Lady, who is told to either have no face or a face covered in BLOOD, has been the cause of many car accidents over the years. Drivers reported crashing after looking into their rearview mirror only to see the woman sitting, gruesome and eerie, in their back seat. Many believe that the Multo is a woman who was violated and killed by Japanese soldiers during World War II, and now she spends her days seeking revenge on pretty much anyone.
Our next urban legend deals with slippers and sandals being left outside. So this urban legend was apparently pretty big in the 90s especially. A lot of folks growing up at that time seemed to have stories about adults telling them not to leave their sandals, slippers, shoes, anything out in front of the house when coming in from playing out in the street, and to make sure to bring their footwear back inside. The reason being that cult members would apparently prowl the streets, and those whose flip-flops have been left outside would be kidnapped and sacrificed. These cult members were often said to be Satanists. I guess they'd figure if there was footwear sitting outside someone's home, they'd know there were people inside so that they could like attack. Maybe these cult members just hate messy front entrances so much it throws them into a blind rage. If anyone has more insight into this, let us know down in the comments.
Okay, you guys, it's Berberoka time. I don't know why I said it like it's a thing. I don't think it's a thing, but anyways, you're probably wondering what's wrong with me or what a Berberoka is. Well, it's daylight saving, so I'm down on sleep, and also a Berberoka is a mythical water creature found in the freshwater rivers of the Philippines. It's an ogre-like being that does a pretty good job blending in with its surroundings because of its skin, which resembles foliage-adorned rocks. It's probably friendly, right? Wrong. In fact, it's not friendly at all, and it does not like fishermen. The Berberoka's main move is to suck the water out of lakes until schools of fish become easily accessible to fishermen. When they try to catch the fish, the Berberoka spits the water back out, causing the fishermen to drown. I can't actually tell if he really hates fishermen or if he just really likes the fish, but let me know what you guys think.
And finally, we have the Headless Priests. Now, there are tales of ghostly Headless Priests apparently told in various parts of the world, but the Philippines is probably the most well-known for this. So the tale of the Headless Priest, or priests, would be whispered about mostly in Catholic schools. It's just as the name suggests, it's a figure wearing a priest's robe, floating around without a head, often trying to retrieve it. As for how the priest died, there are a couple main versions. One is that the priest died at the hands of the Spanish during the colonial era, and the other that Japanese soldiers beheaded several Filipino priests during World War II. All right, we're gonna do a couple comment shoutouts.
Yeah. First up, we have at IrishHoopers6899, who said, "This makes me want to grab a Ouija board and go camping. I know I'd be disappointed, but I'd still like to try." If you do try, please let us know, because if something does happen, that would be pretty cool. Pretty scary, but pretty cool. We would love to know though.
Yes, and at blue_JM asks, what does the Swedish government want from James? And I am not at liberty to discuss.
Okay, you guys,
But
I don't even know.
what didn't I do? It's the real question. All right, that's been this video. Thank you very much. I'm James,
I'm Hannah.
and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.